favorite soccer team or your favorite basketball team, I don't know. And you can subscribe to these calendars via URL, or maybe just to click an OK on a pop-up that shows up, OK, or maybe you don't even have to click on anything for events to pop up on your calendar. But we are going to talk about this later. So why is this interesting? Because we compared this to email, calendars versus email, and maybe while in email, the user always have to click on something, sometimes, calendars, the events are pushed on your phone and to already subscribed users. So imagine that a domain for a server for a subscribed calendar is abandoned, and a malicious actor registers that domain, and they can already subscribed users will be pushed with malicious crafted events. So there's less defenses and less user awareness than email. So the beginning of our analysis was with this domain, ocalendar.de. It was a domain that we had synced in our infrastructure. It was indeed an abandoned domain. Abandoned domain for a subscribed calendar for German public and school holiday events, and we registered about 11,000 IP addresses per 24 hours. In the HTTPS request, what got our attention was the ICS file, the user agent being iOS, and the confirmation of being ICS calendar file with the text calendar header. We thought this was interesting, so we did a filter with this text calendar in our syncl to see if we could gather more domains. And we did gather more domains, a lot of them. We divided them in two categories: legit ones, abandoned domains for legit calendar subscriptions, and maliciously crafted calendar domains. In the maliciously crafted, we divided them in two sets, one for base64 encoded paths, and the other one for web call query requests. And this is some of the examples that we got. In regarding to telemetry, during our investigation, the peak telemetry that we got was 4 million unique IP addresses for per 24 hours, most of them in the United States of America, and at the time we had 390 domains in production. This slide is just to show you that this is not a new subject, and it's still increasing at the time being. So we think this is very important to be aware of, and yeah. Because it's opening the door to phishing and malware. Basically, these calendar events that could be pushed to your calendar can come from, imagine that you are playing a game on your phone, and the game suggests that you have to subscribe to their calendar so you don't miss out on special events or special rewards to remind you. Or maybe you are buying something on a commercial website and they say to subscribe to their calendar so you don't miss out on exclusive discounts. Or it can happen on any other website, just a pop-up, you don't know what you're clicking. You just say OK or allow, and you get subscribed to a calendar that you don't even know about, and you start receiving pop-ups or events that urges the fear of your phone being compromised. And most of these events are with links and maybe attachments distributing both phishing and malware. Yeah, so
right, so first things, thank you all for being here. I know it's early, but yeah, thank you so much. So we're going to talk about hunting networks. So as Anna has said, this has been happening. It's a known issue. It keeps happening. And in the future, it will probably keep happening. So, and as you have seen, these seems to be very large networks. We sinkhole some domains. We have 4 million iPhones. So due to the scale, we thought, well, this is probably intentional, meaning there's an operation behind this because it's not some random website people are clicking. And so what we're going to see here in this chapter, we're really just going to focus on one network to try to understand the process behind this. But just know that there are several networks that do this, and they work very similar fashion. So first things first, just mapping out this network, pretty simple. We just pivoted around. The most important part here is that it started out in 2020, at least from what we could tell, goes all the way till right now, and the infrastructure became a little bit more protected also, making it more difficult to map it. So what was happening here was actually people were visiting an initial website, a normal website, okay, so like your news website, whatever you visit, local tech store, and then they ended up on a completely different website. So what was happening is that the initial website was compromised. They either through usually WordPress, but either a WordPress plugin or simply XSS. I think I said that in Portuguese, but you know, and basically what happened is that once you visit this website, well, it starts this entire chain where it's going to pull a bunch of scripts, re-inject them. Not that they do anything different, they're just very obfuscated just to hinder reversing, but at the end of this chain, you get redirected to another website. So we basically section this in 3 parts. First, the compromised website, which has the script injected. We can use this to fingerprint how many websites have this, but of course with time this became more obfuscated. Yes, you can use obfuscated.io, but it has additional layers behind that. So this makes it harder to fingerprint how many websites actually have this. And then at the end of this chain, you get redirected to the hop domain. So this is your classic, very simple traffic distribution system, so a TDS, where this hop domain is going to run a JavaScript, try to identify your device, what type is it Android, is it an iPhone, and based on your device type, will then redirect you to the final. If you're not a bot, it will redirect you to the final subscription domain. And this will attempt to deceive you into subscribing to a calendar in the case of iPhone, but also in the case of Android to calendars, but also push notifications. And so fairly simple logic here in this network. And all you need to know here is that, again, you visit the website that you usually visit, and you end up in this fake CAPTCHA website. So what that looks like is something like this. This is for a push notification, because we were mapping on a PC. But just know that if it was an iPhone, you would have the system pop-up on top with the same fake CAPTCHA. So unless you click allow here, you're not going to see your website, so most people will click allow. And these fake CAPTCHAs, they have several of them, depending on the initial website. If the initial website was to view videos, they would use an overlay for videos or file downloads. And this happens in different languages, which also makes it harder for us to really use the HTML of the fake CAPTCHA to map how many domains are doing this also. And again, we are mainly focused here on iPhone, but there are other types of devices, so other types of sources. APKs mimicking popular apps, documents, so Word documents, PDFs, and basically this was like, they say they have software or like a car manual, everything you can think of. I think I saw one that was like a toilet manual somehow. But yeah, and some of them even have this fake CAPTCHA, which makes you think that you need to solve the CAPTCHA to view the document. So it's basically this, okay? And again, this is one network, so over 1,300 fake CAPTCHA domains and more than 1,000 compromised domains. And this is one network. There are several of them. We sinkhole 2 of them. We identified 3, so more than 6,000 domains in this operation. Again, this is a lot of money on infrastructure, so there needs to be a benefit. Now, who could possibly benefit from this? Well, creating a calendar event in someone's phone is very valuable because, as Anna said, you know, phishing, we're used to phishing exercises. We're not used to phishing exercises on our calendars. If you see, maybe you use your iPhone for work, if you see a meeting there with a link, maybe you'll click it, right? So it's very, very valuable. And disclaimer here on this next part, I'm not accusing anyone, it's just what's out there. So yeah, I don't want to get a lawsuit, but just know that we identified at least 3 ad networks that had started to publicize this pretty openly in saying this, they had this new way of advertising by creating advertising in people's phones, iPhones. And actually, the dates in the 3 of them basically coincide with the start of these networks that started to operate. So, you know, you can think what you will about this, but I, again, just want to say that this is just a suggestion of what's happening. And again, they even go as far as to say, give you examples like antivirus to install. They even say iPhone users are rich and they're the perfect target. So they're pretty open about this. Including, they give you an example of this life cycle with examples such as, you may be exposed online. Here, use a VPN to fix it, which terrible example to use because this made us question, well, surely this is not used for residential proxies, right? Now, maybe some of you are thinking this, which is, well, residential proxies, a big team right now with Android TV boxes, you know, Bedbox, SchemWolf, Void, all these things, but we don't usually think of iPhones for residential proxies. And for a good reason, you know, iOS is very limiting. The store is also very secure for most part. And I think iPhone also limits the network usage of background tasks, so not the ideal target for residential proxies. But just because it's not usual doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So what we did here was we basically mapped and enumerated different proxy services. So what you have here is different proxy services. Some of you might know some of them. Luna Proxy, 7-Eleven, and Rain Proxy, a bunch of them, right? So what you have here in red is the overlap of IPs for a day, of the calendars that we were sinkholing, and the proxies feed. So there is an overlap. Some of them have more than others, which is also interesting. Now, it would be very disingenuous to just present this and say, look, there's an overlap, here you go. They're being used for residential proxies, even though we see that there are proxies being pushed to these calendars events. The reason is that, well, we're mapping the proxy IP is just the external IP, right? So we don't have a differentiation between what's an Android TV box or what's really the iPhone from the proxy IP. So that makes us wonder, and we start seeing things like this when we start to overlap with other things which mimics the same flow, which just to say that it indicates that some of this, what we're seeing, the overlap, could be from TV boxes. So we set out to really try to differentiate this. One way we found was that in the network that we just saw, well, they use a unique identifier that's generated to the traffic distribution system. And we can use this unique identifier to count. So basically, you have a phone. It has a unique, basically gets generated this unique identifier. So for each phone, how many IPs did it have in a day that overlapped with the proxies? And if you have around this range, which is 2 to 4, well, that starts to make sense that it's a mobile device, because it wouldn't have an external, different external IPs. It wouldn't make much sense if it was a TV box. So we start to question that, okay, so maybe not all of them are residential proxies, but from Android TV boxes, but from iPhones, actually. And we can start to look at more types of interesting data, like comparing Sunday to Tuesday, because in a weekday, people are going to go to work, they're going to go to a work, then a restaurant, they're going to connect to different Wi-Fis. And what we see is that even though during the week, the overall number of devices is less, the ones that have 2 to 3 to 4 IPs actually increases. So again, probably a phone. And last thing, you can just look at the ISPs, do some basic location data. Again, it doesn't send like latitude and whatever, but you can do some basic stuff. And you can see some mobile data ISPs, and you can see also a trajectory, which indicates this device is mobile, so it's definitely not an Android TV box. So right here, we're pretty confident that the data set that we have is iPhones being used as proxy nodes and being sold in proxy services. So again, pretty interesting. Now, proxies is not the only thing that could happen here. Anna is going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm just going to give you a first example because this was very recent. You probably heard of this, I hope, which is the Karuna exploit, or you also had the Dark Sword exploit kit. So this is basically just several exploits chained together that would compromise your phone if you just clicked a link and opened the browser. And this becomes very strong with calendar events. Because all of a sudden, you can create a calendar event in someone's phone saying it's a meeting, and if they click the link, they're compromised. But what if you did in someone's phone, instead, you did in 100 million iPhones? And this is possible, right? So all of a sudden, this becomes a major, major issue, because when the iPhone does the calendar sync, it sends the iPhone version. So again, for every single CV that has the version, we can identify how many current devices are affected to this version without even being a part of Apple. And if you can do this, so can another actor, and push calendar events specifically for that version, that they know it's gonna work, right? So that's very, very dangerous.
Yeah. So about other consequences, we are reaching the final of our presentation. Pedro already talked with you about monetization and most of the events that could happen: residential proxies, geolocation, phishing, malware, click fix, file fix. But we are going to give you an example of AI jailbreak and zero-day attacks that could also happen. So this example that we bring to you is AI jailbreak. So imagine that you already have a maliciously crafted event on your phone, and you use, let's say, Gemini to please summarize the events for the week. So Gemini does summarize the events for the week, and you thank them. And when you thank them, it triggers, on this specific example, Google Home app to open the blinds in your house. But now imagine that it's not Google Home app that it triggers, but Gmail, and it exfiltrates all of the data on your email. So yeah, and this is cross-cutting to all of AI agents nowadays, because AI is really in our daily life. So yeah, we thought this was very important to mention on this. Yeah. Regarding zero-day attacks, it can also happen because we are not only dealing with iPhone calendar or Google Calendar, but there are open source solutions for both calendar and email, just like Zimbra. And this specific, yeah, sorry, I was talking in Portuguese. Specific vulnerability example happened to the Brazilian military. So what happened was a user from the Brazilian military received a maliciously crafted ICS file in email, and it was pushed automatically to their calendar. And when they open the calendar in browser, it automatically exfiltrated all of the data from their email. So basically, they didn't have to click on anything, and this pushes a lot of concern for the user. Doesn't even have to do anything to be compromised. Yeah, I'm already. To conclude, if you are tracking fraud schemes and you are looking at phishing and malware and other things, we think we should also look at calendars because people are not aware of this entryway of attack. So yeah, we thought this could be a good theme to bring an awareness about. This is the QR code to our blog post if you want, and these are our emails if you want to catch up. So thank you.
Okay, we have time for questions. In the back, and Maëline in the center. Erwan, tout au fond. Erwan. First over there. No? Oui.
Hi, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
So I'm an Android user, so I'm not that familiar with Apple necessarily, but I noticed
Me
that
too.
in the Apple Calendar, as well as like the links, there's also like attachments, like files. We've spoken about how links, can be used for a variety of things. In that attachments, is that an actual file on the device? How does that behave in relation to the link aspect? Are there any unique considerations there?
So I think that even Apple has become a little bit aware of this in terms of attachments, because what we've seen, actually Anna told me about this, was that in more recent versions of Apple, it removes attachments by default on the calendars. So if you have a more recent version, you need to disallow that. So that's one thing that's been blocked off. And of course, Apple also has its security ecosystem, so you would have to go through the verifying signature with Gatekeeper or verifying if it's malicious with Xprotect. So they have an ecosystem to detect this, but you might have an EDR, it's the same thing, which it still can happen for sure. So yeah, I hope I answered your question, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, thank you a lot for the presentation. It was very interesting. You spoke about Corona and dark sword exploits. Were you able during your investigations to prove that this is indeed used to exploit those? Or
I hope not. Right now what we're doing is that, okay, we're trying to scale this to really make ways that we can subscribe to a bunch of calendars and really track everything that's being put there and triage it, right? So trying to scale it, because until here we just have like a phone and we're manually doing it. So to answer very directly to your question, no, personally no. I hope we never find it, because that's a real issue. Simply because these networks that they advertise, if you create an account there, you will see that they advertise in their portal that they have like I don't know, 600 iPhones that they can push things to. So hopefully not, right? Let's keep hoping. But it's fun that we can see that when Apple pushed the update, we can see that it diminished, but it's not zero. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Another question on the balcony? No one.